Welcome back to another Rescue Bots Academy episode review. Today we're taking a look at episode 40, Digfest. In this episode, the recruits must locate parts of a Cybertronian satellite which has crashed in the desert before the humans find it. Wait, wasn't there an episode of Space Force like this? At the beginning of this episode, the recruits are watching a TV show called Digfest, which is apparently some kind of contest where people compete using construction vehicles, which sounds like it would be incredibly dangerous in real life. But this is a cartoon, so instead we have bucket loaders doing somersaults.
Crazy for construction vehicles? Do you dig diggers? Then get yourself down to Digfest.
Weird, they use Cybertronian writing in their show. Realistically, this is probably just an easy solution for the animators so that when they translate the show to other languages, they don't have to translate the text on screen as well, just the voiceover. Other shows have been doing this for years. Shows like Pokemon, where signs and other stuff were originally written in Japanese and then had to be translated into English or other languages for other markets. But once Pokemon became a worldwide phenomenon, they eventually came up with the solution of making up their own written language, which they wouldn't have to spend all that extra time and money on translating. So that's probably the real reason why they're using Cybertronian text in a human commercial, even though canonically or fictionally they really shouldn't be. As for a lore-friendly explanation, maybe we're seeing it through the Autobots' eyes and the Autobots' computers are automatically translating it for them. Yeah, let's go with that. The other recruits remark how Hotshot was apparently famous on Cybertron before becoming a rescue bot, which I didn't really get that impression from the beginning of the series. It seemed more like he was just a kid playing a street game of Cube, but the way the others talk, it's like he's the Michael Jordan of Cube. So then why did Prime find him playing what looked like a backstreet game instead of in like a locker room of some big arena? Hotshot finds his scrapbook of greatest moments from his Cube career, which sparks this whole conversation. But I'm pretty sure these are all just screenshots from that same Cube game at the beginning of the series, which could either just be the animators saving time and money, or maybe Hotshot really isn't a big Cube star and has just been telling his friends that so they'd think he's cool or something. Correction. Upon careful review, I was only able to match up the two pictures on this page on the left to two moments in that first episode. So I guess the rest of these images were created for this scene. Funny that there's no other players in these pictures with Hotshot. Again, this could just be because the animators didn't want to make it super obvious that this was actually screenshots from the first episode, which we probably would be able to tell if we recognize those other bots that look like kid versions of RC, Blaster, and Springer. Or maybe Hotshot is really narcissistic and only keeps pictures of just himself. I find it funny that Wedge says that he doesn't care about the fame as he looks through some of his Heroes of Cybertron cards, which in a past episode he says that it's his dream to become one of them. So I think Wedge is saying one thing here, but he really wants the other, which, as we'll learn later in the episode, he kind of does. So the recruits have no trouble finding the first two pieces of the satellite, but it turns out the third and final part is in the middle of the Digfest arena. Funny, it just so happens they were watching a commercial for that same TV program, and now they're in the desert where that same program is being filmed. After saving the humans from an out-of-control digger, Wedge becomes the new star of Digfest. And it seems like the fame is starting to get to his head, ignoring his friends' calls who are trying to tell him that the third satellite piece is in the arena. But it turns out that he was listening to them as he pretends to crash in order to pick up the satellite piece and sneak it out of the arena without the humans noticing. Pretty clever of not only Wedge, but also the writers. I honestly thought that Wedge had been blinded by the fame, as was subtly alluded to earlier in the episode. But it turns out that Wedge had his eye on the mission the entire time. This was a pretty good episode. I like how when you take the time to look closer, it's a deeper, more thought out episode than just the recruits go to some weird sporting event, Wedge gets to be Hotshot for a moment, and then they find some contrived way of completing the mission that got them there in the first place. Another thing, when the guy is wanting to shake Wedge's hand, but obviously he can't because he's not allowed to transform, this really made me wish that they had holo avatars in the show like they did in the IDW comics and the movies. Who knows, maybe they could get them in a future episode, and then the recruits could spend a whole episode going out and interacting with humans and doing human things while pretending to be humans. Speaking of humans, we see the mother and the daughter that we often see recurring in this series in the stands of the crowd. But the father is not with them. Instead, it's another man, and I'm guessing his son. I'm going to assume that this is actually the mother's brother and his son, making that the daughter's cousin and uncle. It's a sweet little family day out at this odd sporting event. And I didn't notice this until editing, but you can actually see Wes behind them. Wes being from the episode Driving a Wedge. Funny how those are both Wedge-centric episodes. You can also see him in the stands behind some other people too, so I guess he moves around? There's also that little old lady who Cody gives his groceries to in the episode Balloon Up a Tree. Are they just reusing them as background filler? More on that in the next episode. It also made me think that it was weird when the announcer guy never questioned it when Wedge told him his name. But then I remembered there actually are people named Wedge. Well, at least in Star Wars there are. Well, that's going to do it for this episode review. I think this was a pretty good episode. What do you think about it? Did you like this episode? Let me know down in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and do all that other stuff. And I'll see you back here for more Transformers Rescue Bots Academy, when next time we'll take a look at Trick or Treat. Is this a Halloween episode? I hope the recruits get to dress up in cute costumes. Well, see you next time.